Well, this is a bit of a surprise. The socially conservative pro-law and order Iain Duncan Smith has come out in support of the Blade Runners, the anti-ULEZ activists. I've actually been quite enjoying the last few days and weeks on the mainstream media, corporate media. Even when you have some rogue conservatives and nationalists and anybody else who would go on TV to talk about the Blade Runners. For those obviously who don't know, the Blade Runners are the guys who've been going around causing chaos. They're removing the ULEZ cameras across Greater London to cause disruptions for Sadiq Khan's ultra-low emission zones and all that. Now, even those who are supportive of it, they can't say it really directly if they're on TV or radio because they're scared of the backlash. That means you are supporting vandalism, right? But we don't care. We are new media. We could say whatever we want. Iain Duncan Smith is brave enough to go on TV and in Parliament and on radio to actually openly support and defend the Blade Runners. I have a feeling the Tories missed a bit of a chance by not bringing back Iain Duncan Smith. Obviously, IDS was party leader when he was younger. He wasn't ready back then. But perhaps it might have been a good idea to make him party leader instead of Rishi Sunak or even Liz Truss or even Boris Johnson. So, IDS said, a lot of people in my constituency have been cementing up the cameras or putting plastic bags over them. I'm happy for them to do it because they are facing an imposition that no one wants and they have been lied to about it. Oh, this is the most direct statement from a politician. Brilliant. He says, the actions you are seeing show how angry people are at what is being imposed on them. Sadiq Khan has gerrymandered all the information. People have had enough. This is what is impressive. And it's quite rare to see a veteran politician to come out and actually directly say something robust. Usually they're always on the fence. Usually they want to be diplomatic about it. But he doesn't care. He said, yeah, good for them. I'm going to support criminal activity because it's not the concern of the public. As he said, they've gerrymandered the information around this policy, and this is a perfect way of putting it, because this issue goes way beyond London or Greater London or Sadiq Khan. Firstly, this policy is spreading around the country anyway, but it's about the precedent that we are setting as a nation. You're allowing tyranny to happen under the disguise and the guise of democracy, under the illusion or using the illusion of a democracy, and we have to challenge it. You can see these cameras being destroyed. So sad, so sorry. But speaking to GB News, we have the Transport Minister, Mark Harper. Oh dear. He said he would stop the rollout if he had the power to do so. And he highlighted his reservations about the true motives behind the expansion. The problem I have with Mark Harper is he talks a good game. You know, during the lockdown, he was one of the anti-lockdown rebels, right? When he was a backbencher. As part of Rishi Sunak's government and cabinet, you have to sell out in order to be in the cabinet. The man keeps saying, I want to stop it. But they said, well, I can't stop it. Then they said, we are going to block it, Downing Street. Then they said, we're going to talk to our lawyers. And they did talk to the lawyers because they had the mechanism to use the Greater London Act, the Greater London Authority Act of 1999 that created the Mayor of London position. Use that to block. They talked to the lawyers, and the government lawyers came back and said, it will be very tough for you to win if you take action. So Rishi Sunak and Mark Harper decided not to take action, not to even try to block the ULEZ expansion, because the lawyer said you might lose. So you didn't even try. And there are always ways to stop it. You can scrap the role and the position of London Mayor. Yeah, it's radical. But it was radical to create it. Yes, of course, it's radical to remove it. That's the only way to do it. Do it. Of course, you're not going to do it. Anyway, Mark Harper said, I don't have the power to stop it coming into force. That's a decision for the Mayor of London, backed by the Labour leader. I think he should think again. I love how they keep blaming the other party. You are literally government. You turned net zero into legislation. It's now part of our rule of law to do net zero. You started it. Now you're blaming Keir Starmer. He says, Mark Harper, that Sadiq Khan says this has to do with air quality. His own impact assessment says this will only have a minor to a negligible effect on air pollution. It's not about air pollution, it's about a money-raising exercise. And this is absolutely not the time to be putting all those costs on hard-pressed and hard-working Londoners and those in the area outside of London. If you truly cared about people losing their money for these sort of schemes, again, you guys introduced net zero in this government. And Theresa May and Boris Johnson, all of you all loved it. So I don't understand why you're blaming Keir Starmer on this. I'm not a supporter of Keir Starmer, but he doesn't even have any power. He can't. The best he can do is just pick up the phone and beg Sadiq Khan to not do it. And he's tried, and it didn't really work. You have legislative powers, and you're refusing to use it because you're scared of government lawyers. Now, going back to ideas, Iain Duncan Smith is pretty sound on certain issues, especially when it comes to foreign affairs and China. He's also today come out to attack the government for going to China. Again, they've sent James Cleverly, Foreign Secretary, to China, to Beijing, to have conversations with them. Obviously, IDS, who is currently banned from China, is basically banned by CCP, has attacked the British government for visiting Beijing for surrendering to the Communist Party in China. This is actually quite interesting because the government came out, the line that they are using is fascinating. James Cleverly said, well, disengaging with China is not a credible option. And James Cleverly's, and as Foreign Secretary, and Downing Street, their position is the same position that we've had for years as British government. You know what they say? We have to have official ties. I get it. But what we do, we have meetings and we will raise our concerns when it comes to human rights issues in those countries. They always say it publicly. They always say it when they meet with Saudi, when they meet with China and all these places. One, they say, this is the only way to influence, slowly and quietly influence their human rights issues and everything else. One, you've already publicly said it on TV before you meet with them, repeatedly over the last few years. Do you think they're going to be tricked into, oh no, I just met with James Cleverly and I've decided to change my human rights policies? I mean, you've already exposed the trick. Two, it's nonsensical. They know it's theatre. You know it's theatre. You basically sit there, when the cameras are there, you say hi, you shake hands, you take a picture, and you say, by the way, before we start, I need to raise concerns about human rights. And what they do, the Chinese leaders or the Saudi or whatever, they nod and like, yeah, I understand. Anyway, cameras get out. Now, let's talk. That's what happens every single time. There is no point in trying to influence other countries' foreign policies, domestic policies, and actual fundamental values by having a meeting with them and raising concerns about human rights. What does that achieve? It doesn't do anything. Now, instead, what we could do is do the opposite of David Cameron and Bill Clinton and Barack Obama and W. Bush and all the others who decided to essentially surrender to China. What people like Clinton did at first, they opened the door to China in 1992, start shaking hands with the Chinese leaders, thinking, we're going to get them to do free trade. They're going to trade with us. They're going to buy from us. We're going to buy from them. It's going to be fair. Then what China did, they stole all the patents and all the copyright issues and everything else. They built things that they were being built in America. They started selling them in a much cheaper way. And then they started infiltrating the system and rigged the markets. And they are now selling to us more than we are buying from. We're not buying it. They're not buying anything from us anymore compared to what we're actually getting from them. So that's what happened at first in the 90s. That was the trade game that they messed up. And David Cameron, George Osborne, and even Boris Johnson went to China in 2012, 2013, a red carpet, and they brought them here to London thinking we can tame the dragon. They're going to become nice and civilized and pro-democracy. Oh, you're all a bunch of sellouts who've been doing the same thing for decades, and no one in the media or anybody else actually held you to account. They were all just being your parrots every single time you rolled out the red carpet. The media, BBC and Sky and all the other outlets and CNN, they just reported saying, we are so proud that we are now friendly with China and Iran and blah, blah, blah. What did you not think to ask your presidents and prime ministers whether that's a good idea? Or what the actual direction or vision is? Anyway, let me know your thoughts on Iain Duncan Smith and what he said. I'm Mahyar Tousi, and we are the media.